The Grand Conclave Station floated in the darkness of space like a metal flower with 1,000 petals. It was old. Older than most civilizations that sent their representatives here. For millions of years, the elder races had gathered in this place to decide the fate of worlds. Today, they would decide the fate of humanity. Ambassador Kthra stood at the center of the great chamber. He was tall and thin, with gray skin that looked like stone and eyes that glowed with soft blue light. His species, the Dominari, had ruled 1,000 star systems for 50,000 years. They were logical, they were powerful, and they were afraid. Around him sat the representatives of 47 different species. Some had bodies made of light. Others floated in tanks of strange liquids. A few existed only as thoughts projected into machines. They came from every corner of the galaxy, and they all waited to hear what the Dominari ambassador had to say. "Thank you for answering our call," Kthra began. His voice was calm and cold, like wind blowing across ice. "We have gathered you here to discuss a growing threat. A species from the outer spiral arm. They call themselves humans." A holographic display appeared above his head. It showed a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. Earth, the birthplace of humanity. 300 years ago, these creatures developed faster than light travel. Since then, they have spread to over 200 star systems. They breed quickly, they adapt even faster, and they fight with a violence that the galaxy has never seen. The display changed. Now it showed images of human wars, soldiers firing weapons, cities burning, ships exploding in the vacuum of space. "They do not only fight other species," Kthra continued. "They fight each other, constantly. Throughout their entire history, they have never known a single generation without war. They kill for resources. They kill for beliefs. Sometimes they kill for no reason at all." A murmur passed through the chamber. Many of the delegates had heard stories about humans. Strange creatures from a death world who ate the flesh of other animals and drank poisoned water for fun. Most had dismissed these stories as exaggeration. Now they were not so sure. "We have studied their history carefully," Kthra said. "We have watched how they respond to first contact situations. When our exploration vessels encountered human ships in the Kepler sector, we attempted peaceful communication. They responded by capturing one of our vessels and taking it apart, piece by piece. Within 20 years, they had built their own version of our technology. Within 50 years, they had improved it." The display showed more images. Human scientists working in laboratories, human engineers building ships, human soldiers testing weapons. "They learn too fast," Kthra said. "They grow too quickly, and they fear nothing. Our psychologists have analyzed their behavior patterns. They have a concept they call courage. It means they will fight even when they know they cannot win. They will die rather than surrender. They will sacrifice themselves to protect their young, their families, even complete strangers." He paused to let his words sink in. "Some of you may think this sounds admirable. I assure you, it is not. It is terrifying. Because it means they cannot be controlled. They cannot be intimidated. They cannot be stopped by any method short of complete destruction." Kthra raised one long, thin hand. "I propose that we eliminate humanity while we still can. Not out of hatred, not out of fear, but out of simple logic. If we allow them to continue growing, they will eventually become too powerful to contain. They will spread across the galaxy like a disease, and when they do, they will bring their violence with them." The chamber erupted in noise. Some delegates shouted in agreement. Others protested. A few simply watched in silence, their alien faces impossible to read. The debate lasted for hours. Species that had traded peacefully with humans argued for caution. Species that had lost ships in border conflicts demanded action. The Dominari presented more evidence, more statistics, more projections showing how dangerous humanity would become if left unchecked. Slowly, the mood in the chamber shifted. Fear began to win over caution. Logic began to win over hope. One by one, the delegates started to nod their heads. Yes, perhaps the Dominari were right. Perhaps it was better to act now, while the humans were still weak. Perhaps extinction was the only way. Kthra allowed himself a small smile. The vote would pass. Humanity would be destroyed. The galaxy would be safe. And then someone spoke. "You do not understand what you are proposing." The voice was old. Older than the station. Older than most of the species present. It came from a corner of the chamber, where the shadows seemed thicker than they should be. Every eye in the room turned toward the speaker. A figure emerged from the darkness. It was hard to look at directly. Its form kept shifting, flickering, like a flame caught in a wind that no one else could feel. This was Elder Sithron of the Veth Collective. The Veth were ancient beyond measure. They had been traveling between stars when most of the species in this chamber were still learning to use fire. They rarely spoke at conclave meetings. They rarely did anything at all except watch and wait and remember. But now Elder Sithron was speaking. And everyone listened. "I have watched this debate with great interest," Sithron said. Their voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I have heard your arguments, your statistics, your projections, and I must tell you that you are making a terrible mistake." Kthra stepped forward. "With respect, Elder, the evidence is clear. Humanity is a threat that must be." "Sit down, young one." The words were quiet, but they carried the weight of millions of years. Kthra found himself sitting before he realized he had moved. "You think you understand humanity?" Sithron continued. "You have studied their wars, their violence, their capacity for destruction. But you have missed something important. Something that my people learned long ago, at a terrible cost." The chamber fell completely silent. "Let me tell you about the last species we tried to exterminate," Sithron said. "Let me tell you what happened when we made the same mistake you are about to make. And then, if you still wish to attack humanity, I will not stop you, but you will not be able to say you were not warned." The shadows in the chamber seemed to grow deeper. The temperature dropped, and Elder Sithron began to speak of things that had been forgotten for 12 million years. The chamber fell silent as Elder Sithron began their story. The ancient being's form continued to flicker and shift, but their voice was steady and clear. 12 million years ago, they began. "My people were not as you see us now. We were not quiet observers. We were not peaceful watchers. We were conquerors. We ruled a quarter of this galaxy, and we believed that gave us the right to decide who deserved to live." A holographic display appeared in the air. It showed a galaxy map, with a massive section colored in deep purple. The Veth Empire, at its height. We were proud. We were powerful. And we were arrogant, beyond measure. When we encountered a species we considered inferior, we simply removed them. Extinction was our tool for keeping the galaxy clean and orderly. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Veth were speaking of genocide on a scale that most species could not imagine. "Then we found them," Sithron continued. "On a small planet orbiting a dying star. A world that should not have supported life at all." The display changed to show a planet. It was gray and brown, covered in volcanoes and earthquakes. Storms of poison gas swept across its surface. Radiation from its unstable sun bathed everything in deadly light. We called this world a death planet. The conditions were so harsh that nothing should have survived there. But something did. A species had evolved in that hell. They called themselves the Kthra. Images of the Kthra appeared. They were small creatures, covered in thick hide that protected them from radiation. They had 4 arms and 2 legs. Their faces were flat, with small eyes that could see in near darkness. By our standards, they were primitive. They had not developed space travel. They had barely discovered electricity. They lived in caves and fought constantly among themselves. They ate the flesh of other animals on their world. They were violent, brutal, and short-lived. Sithron paused. They reminded us of vermin. Pests that had somehow survived where they should not have. We decided to clean them up. We decided to clean them up. The chamber was completely quiet now. Every delegate understood where this story was going. We began with orbital bombardment. We dropped asteroids on their major population centers. We expected them to die quickly. The display showed the attacks. Rocks falling from the sky, cities made of stone being crushed, millions of Kthra dying in moments. But they did not die quickly, Sithron said. They hid. They went deeper underground. They found caves we had not known existed. And they survived. So we tried biological weapons. We created diseases that should have wiped out every living thing on their planet. The Kthra got sick. Many of them died. But some developed immunity. They passed this immunity to their children. Within 10 generations, our diseases could not touch them. We tried radiation bombs. We tried chemical attacks. We tried destabilizing their planet's core. Nothing worked. No matter what we did, some of them always survived. And the survivors were always stronger than before. Kthvorin raised his hand. Surely, with your technology, you could have. Let me finish, Sithron interrupted. Yes, we could have destroyed their planet completely, shattered it into pieces. But we were curious. We wanted to understand how they kept surviving. So we sent soldiers to the surface. The display showed Veth warriors landing on the Death World. They were tall and graceful, armed with weapons that could destroy mountains. Our soldiers were the best in the galaxy. Each one had centuries of training. Each one had equipment that the Kthra could not possibly understand. The Kthra killed them all, a murmur passed through the chamber. Not with technology, Sithron explained. With traps, with ambushes, with tactics we had never seen before. They learned our patterns within days. They found weaknesses in our armor that our own engineers had missed. They fought with such fury that our soldiers became afraid. But that was only the beginning. Because while our soldiers were dying on the surface, some Kthra were studying the wreckage of our ships. They took apart our weapons. They examined our engines. They learned how everything worked. The display showed Kthra scientists working in underground laboratories. Their small hands moved quickly, connecting wires and adjusting circuits. Within 3 generations, they had built their own version of our faster-than-light drive. It was crude. It was inefficient. But it worked. And suddenly, the Kthra were no longer trapped on their death world. Within 5 generations, they had weapons that could match ours. Within 10 generations, they had weapons we could not counter. Sithran's form flickered more intensely. The war lasted 800 years. 800 years of constant fighting. 800 years of watching our empire crumble. 800 years of learning what it meant to face a species that simply would not surrender. The display showed battle after battle. Veth fleets being destroyed. Veth worlds being conquered. Veth civilians fleeing in terror. We lost 92% of our population. 92%. Do you understand what that means? For every 100 of us that existed before the war, only 8 survived after. The chamber was filled with shocked silence. And the worst part? Sithron continued. The Kthra did not want to destroy us. They simply wanted to survive. Every time we attacked, they defended themselves. Every time we retreated, they stopped fighting. They gave us chance after chance to make peace. We refused. We were too proud. Too certain that we would eventually win. In the end, it was the Kthra who offered us mercy. When they could have wiped us out completely, they chose to let us live. They helped us rebuild. They became our allies instead of our destroyers. Sithron turned to face the Dominari ambassador directly. It took my people 2 million years to recover from our arrogance. 2 million years of shame and rebuilding. And the Kthra, despite everything we did to them, forgave us. The ancient being moved closer to the holographic image of Earth. And I tell you now, young one, the Kthra were nothing compared to what I sense in humanity. Nothing at all. The chamber remained silent after Elder Sithron finished their story. Many delegates were still trying to understand what they had heard. The mighty Veth. Reduced to near extinction by a primitive species? It seemed impossible. Ambassador Kthra rose from his seat. His confidence had been shaken, but not destroyed. A powerful story, he said. But the Kthra lived millions of years ago. Surely your people have learned since then. Surely we have better methods now. Around. You still do not understand, Sithron replied. Come. Let me show you what your intelligence networks have missed. Let me show you what only a species that sees time differently can see. The chamber transformed. The walls disappeared, replaced by stars. The delegates found themselves floating in space, surrounded by images and data streams. You have studied humanity's wars, Sithron said. You have counted their dead. You have measured their weapons. But you have looked only at the surface. Let me show you what lies beneath. An image appeared of a burning building on Earth. Flames poured from every window. A human male ran toward the building, not away from it. He disappeared inside and emerged moments later carrying a child that was not his own. He went back in again and again until the building collapsed. This human died saving strangers, Sithron explained. He knew he would probably not survive. He went anyway. Can you understand why? The display changed to show a battlefield, human soldiers under heavy fire. One of them threw himself onto a small metal object. An explosion. The soldier died. The others lived. This human had less than 2 seconds to make a decision, Sithron said. He chose to sacrifice himself for his companions, not his family, not his children. Soldiers he had known for only a few months. More images appeared. A human woman giving food to starving children in a war zone. A human doctor working for days without sleep to save patients. A human teacher shielding students with her own body during an attack. You see violence when you look at humanity, Sithron continued. But violence is only half of what they are. The other half is this. A capacity for sacrifice and love that we have never seen in any other species. Kthra shook his head. Beautiful examples, but they do not change the facts. Humans are dangerous. Yes, Sithron agreed. They are dangerous. More dangerous than you can possibly imagine. But not for the reasons you think. The display changed again. Now it showed something strange. Wolves. Large predators from Earth with sharp teeth and strong jaws. These animals were hunters, Sithron explained. They could kill humans easily. They were fast, strong, and they worked in packs. They were the humans' natural enemies. And what did humans do? Did they destroy the wolves? Did they drive them to extinction? The image shifted to show a human sitting by a fire with a wolf sleeping at their feet. They made the wolves their friends, Sithron said. They fed them. They cared for them. They loved them. Generation after generation, until the wolves became something new. Dogs. The most loyal companions in human history. Humans do not simply destroy their enemies. They transform them. They find ways to turn threats into allies. They create bonds where none should exist. The display now showed complex mathematics and probability calculations. My people can see possible futures, Sithron explained. Not perfectly, but well enough. We have calculated what will happen if you attack humanity without cause. The numbers began to form shapes, timelines branching and merging. In 93% of futures where humanity is attacked first, they do not simply defend themselves. They unify. Every human faction, every nation, every group that was fighting against each other suddenly stops fighting. They turn together and face the external threat. The display showed images of human ships. Thousands of them. Then millions. Then billions. Their creativity, which they normally spend on art and music and entertainment, focuses completely on war. Their scientists stop studying medicine and start studying weapons. Their engineers stop building homes and start building warships. Everything they are, everything they have, becomes dedicated to one goal: survival. And then revenge. The chamber grew colder. The images now showed destruction on a massive scale. Fleets being wiped out, planets being conquered, species being driven to the edge of extinction. In 78% of those futures, the species that attacked humanity does not survive. In the remaining 22%, they survive, but are so reduced that they never recover their former power. Kthra's face had grown pale. But here is the part that truly terrifies me, Sithron said. After humanity wins, after they have destroyed their enemies completely, do you know what they do? Well, the display showed humans on a devastated world, not celebrating, not conquering, working. They rebuild, they help the survivors, they grieve for what they were forced to become. They create memorials to remember the dead, including the dead of their enemies. Humans do not want to be monsters. They do not enjoy destruction. But when you threaten their children, their homes, their future, they will become whatever they need to be. And then, when the danger is past, they will try to heal the wounds they caused. Sithron turned to face the assembled delegates. This is what you are proposing to provoke. This is the sleeping giant you wish to awaken. A species that can love without limit and destroy without hesitation. A species that will befriend wolves and shatter empires. The ancient being moved back to their corner of the chamber. They are what we call a threshold species. Leave them alone, and they will become the galaxy's greatest allies. Attack them, and they will become its greatest nightmare. The choice is yours, but do not pretend you were not warned. The assembly took a break after Elder Sithron's warning. Delegates gathered in small groups, speaking in hushed voices. The mood had changed. Fear still filled the chamber, but now it was a different kind of fear. Before, they had feared what humanity might become. Now, many feared what might happen if they attacked. Ambassador Kthra used this time to meet with his allies. In a private room near the main chamber, he gathered the representatives of 12 species that had already agreed to support the extermination vote. The Veth Elder's story is concerning, admitted one delegate, a crystalline being from the Shardax collective. Perhaps we should reconsider. No, Kthra said firmly. We cannot let ancient history frighten us into inaction. The Kthra lived 12 million years ago. We have better technology now. Better strategies. Better weapons. Thanks for watching, and CUTBO. But the projections, another delegate said. 93% unification rate. 78% chance of our destruction. Projections based on what? Kthra asked. On Veth mathematics that we cannot verify? On probability calculations that may be completely wrong? The Veth see shadows and call them certainties. We are Dominari. We deal in facts. He activated a holographic display showing human military capabilities. Look at the facts. Humanity has existed in space for only 300 years. They still use chemical fuel in some of their ships. Their weapons are powerful, but crude. Their defenses have obvious weaknesses. If we strike now, with full force, we can destroy them before they have a chance to unify. And if the Veth are right? The Shardax delegate asked. Then we will have learned an important lesson, Kthra replied. But I do not believe they are right. The Veth have become too cautious in their old age. They see threats everywhere. They have forgotten what it means to be strong. The debate continued for hours. Gradually, Kthra's confidence began to influence his allies. Yes, the Veth story was frightening. But the Dominari had ruled for 50,000 years. They had faced countless threats and defeated them all. Surely humanity would be no different. When the full assembly reconvened, the atmosphere was tense. Delegates who had seemed ready to cancel the vote now looked uncertain again. Kthra had done his work well. We have heard the Veth Elder's warning, Kthra announced. We respect their wisdom. But we cannot let fear control our decisions. We must act based on evidence, not on stories from millions of years ago. Sithron remained silent in their corner. However, Kthra continued, I understand that many of you remain concerned. So I propose a compromise. Instead of full extermination, we will conduct a test. This caught everyone's attention. We will send a single strike force to attack a minor human colony. Nothing large. perhaps 40 or 50,000 inhabitants. We will destroy the colony and observe humanity's response. If they crumble into panic, as primitive species usually do, we will proceed with the full extermination. If they prove more difficult than expected, we will gather here again to reconsider our options. Murmurs filled the chamber. This seemed reasonable to many delegates. A small test, limited risk, valuable information. I must object, Sithron said, speaking for the first time since the break. Any attack will trigger the response I described. You cannot conduct a small war with humanity. You can only conduct a total war or no war at all. With respect, Elder, Kthra replied. You have had your chance to speak. The Assembly must now vote on my proposal. The vote was close. 26 species voted in favor of the test attack. 18 voted against. 3 abstained. The motion passed. Sithron watched the result with ancient, unreadable eyes. The strike force was assembled within days. 12 Dominari warships, each one capable of destroying a small moon. They carried weapons that could crack continents and soldiers who had never known defeat. Their target was Elysium Colony, a small human settlement on a pleasant world near the edge of human space. 42,000 civilians. Farmers, mostly. Some miners. Families who had left Earth to build a new life among the stars. As the fleet departed, Sithron transmitted a private message to the Veth homeworld. It has begun, the message said. The young ones have chosen to learn through pain. Prepare our people. Ready our defenses. Not against humanity, but for what comes after. One way or another, the galaxy is about to change forever. The message also contained instructions. Archives to be preserved. Knowledge to be protected. Plans for helping rebuild whatever civilization remained when the fighting ended. Deep in Veth space, ancient machines began to wake. Libraries that had been sealed for millions of years started to open. The Veth were preparing for the worst. On Elysium Colony, the humans continued their daily lives. Children went to school. Farmers tended their crops. Miners dug for precious minerals. None of them knew that death was coming from the stars. None of them knew that their deaths would change history. The Dominari fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel exactly on schedule. The attack began at dawn, local time. The first bombs fell on population centers. The first energy beams cut through civilian shelters. The first 40,000 humans died before they even understood what was happening. By sunset, Elysium Colony was burning. By midnight, it was dead. And somewhere on Earth, in a building that few aliens knew existed, a message arrived. A simple report from survivors who had managed to escape, a few hundred refugees in damaged ships, carrying recordings of what had happened. The humans who received this message did not panic. They did not cry out in fear. They simply looked at each other with expressions that the Dominari had never seen before. Then they began to make calls. The consequence, the first year after Elysium, was quiet. Too quiet. The Dominari had expected panic. They had expected scattered attacks. They had expected the humans to fall apart into arguing factions, each blaming the other for the disaster. Instead, they got silence. Human colonies stopped transmitting on frequencies that the Dominari could intercept. Trade ships disappeared from known routes. Diplomatic channels went dark. It was as if humanity had simply vanished into the void of space. Ambassador Kthra told the conclave that this was a sign of success. The humans were hiding. They were afraid. The test had proven that they could be intimidated after all. Elder Sithron said nothing. In the second year, things began to change. Dominari scout ships started disappearing near the border with human space. Not destroyed in battle. Just gone. No wreckage, no distress signals, simply vanished. Then, reports came from species that had voted against the attack. The Valanthi, who had traded with humans for decades, reported that human merchants had returned. But they were different now. They did not joke. They did not smile. They bought materials, metals, chemicals, components for engines and weapons. They paid in gold and technology and asked no questions. And when they left, They left no trace of where they were going. In the third year, the first Dominari military base fell. The attack came without warning. One moment, the base was operating normally. The next moment, ships appeared from nowhere and opened fire. Human ships, but not the crude vessels the Dominari had expected. These were something new, something better. The battle lasted less than an hour. The Dominari defenders fought bravely, but they were overwhelmed. The human ships were faster, more maneuverable, and their weapons were terrifyingly effective. When the fighting ended, the humans did not celebrate. They collected their dead, gathered intelligence from the base computers, and left. They did not occupy the planet. They did not plant flags. They simply showed the Dominari what they could do and disappeared. In the fourth year, humanity sent a message. Not a declaration of war, not a demand for surrender. Just a question. Who ordered the attack on Elysium? The message was sent on every frequency. It was translated into every language. It reached every species in the Galactic Conclave. And it made something very clear. Humanity was not interested in fighting the entire galaxy. They only wanted the ones responsible. Several species immediately provided information. The Valanthi sent everything they knew about the Dominari war plans. The Shardax revealed secret communications that proved Kthra had orchestrated the entire attack. Others followed. The Dominari found themselves alone. In the fifth year, humanity reached Dominari Prime. The fleet that emerged from faster-than-light travel was larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Thousands of ships, ranging from small fighters to massive battleships. They did not fire immediately. They simply took position around the planet and waited. Then a single shuttle descended to the surface. It carried one human, a diplomat named Sarah Chen. Ambassador Kthra was no longer an ambassador. He had been stripped of his rank after the disastrous war. His people blamed him for underestimating humanity. They blamed him for ignoring the Veth warning. They blamed him for everything. Now he sat in a cell, awaiting execution by his own government. His species hoped that killing him would satisfy humanity's desire for revenge. The cell door opened. Sarah Chen walked in. She was small by human standards, with dark hair and tired eyes. She carried no weapons. She had no guards. She sat down across from Kthra. "My daughter was on Elysium," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was something underneath it. Something controlled. She was 7 years old. She wanted to be a botanist. She loved flowers. Kthra said nothing. What could he say? 42,000 people died because you were afraid of what we might become, Sarah continued. Children. Families. People who had never hurt anyone. I was trying to protect my people, Kthra finally said. I was trying to prevent a greater war. I know, Sarah said. That's what makes this so hard. She leaned forward. We don't want to be here. We don't want to be conquerors. We don't want to be monsters. We just wanted to explore the stars and find new friends. That's all we ever wanted. But you killed our children. You burned our colony. You forced us to become something we never wanted to be. Tears were forming in her eyes, but her voice remained steady. So now we're here. And I need you to help me convince your leaders to surrender. Because I don't want to kill anyone else's daughter. Not yours. Not theirs. Not anyone's. Kthra stared at her. He had expected anger. He had expected vengeance. He had not expected this, a human who had lost her child, asking him to help end the war because she did not want more children to die. Why should I help you? He asked. Because you were right about one thing, Sarah said. We are dangerous. If this war continues, we will destroy your entire species. Not because we want to, but because we won't be able to stop ourselves. Once we start fighting, we don't stop until the threat is gone. Completely gone. She reached out and touched his hand. But we can stop now. If your people surrender, we will stop. We will help you rebuild. We will give you back your worlds. We will forgive you. In time. That is also what humans do. The next day, the Dominari Empire surrendered unconditionally. 1 year later, a new galactic council convened. Humanity now held a permanent seat. Elder Sithron addressed the assembly. "We tried to warn you," they said. There was no anger in their voice. No satisfaction, just ancient weariness. But perhaps this was always how it had to be. Humanity needed to see what they could become. And so did you. The human ambassador rose to respond. He was an old man, an admiral who had lost 3 sons in the war. His face was lined with grief and exhaustion. "We didn't want to be this," he said quietly. "We still don't. But if you corner us, if you threaten our children, our homes, our future," he paused. Every species in the chamber felt the weight of his words. "We'll become whatever we need to be, and then we'll help you rebuild. Because that's what humans do." The galaxy had learned its lesson. On the memorial wall at New Elysium, 42,000 names were carved in stone. Humans visited it every year to remember what they had lost. Dominari visited it too, to remember what they had learned. And at the very top of the wall, carved larger than all the others, was a simple message: never again. Some said it was a warning. Others said it was a promise. Perhaps it was both.